The sky was dark, filled with smoke and fire. Explosions shook the mountains as human soldiers fought against the Thalkian alien warrior race known for their brutal strength and sharp instincts. The battle had lasted for days. Only small skirmishes continued in the rocky hills where soldiers got separated from their teams. Ethan crawled through the dirt, his armor scratched and his arm bleeding. He had lost contact with his unit hours ago. The last thing he remembered was a surprise attack from above. The enemy moved fast, almost like shadows. He was alone, trying to find a way back to the base. His breathing was heavy. Every sound made him freeze. He knew the Thalkai were excellent hunters. If one of them found him, it could be his last day. But he also knew he couldn't stop. He needed to move. As he stepped carefully around a broken tree, he heard something, a soft grunt. He ducked behind a rock and slowly peeked over.
Oh, what?
Saw made him pause. It was a Thalkai, but not like the ones he had fought before. This one was on her knees, gripping her side. She was wounded. Her long black hair was matted with dust and blood. Her armor was cracked, and her weapon lay broken beside her. Hey, she looked up at him. Their eyes met. Ethan raised his rifle without thinking. She didn't move. He waited for her to attack, to lunge, to scream for help, but she only whispered something. So quiet he almost didn't hear it. Please don't kill me. His hands tightened on the trigger. He had been trained for this moment. The enemy doesn't beg, they don't surrender. They fight to the last breath. That's what they were. Told, but this one was different. He stepped closer. You're Thalkai, he said firmly. She nodded slowly. Her eyes didn't hold hate. They held pain, maybe fear. Then why aren't you attacking me? She lowered her head. I can't win. I'm injured. I have no weapon. If you wish to kill me, do it quickly. Ethan was silent. Part of him wanted to walk away. Part of him knew he should report her. But another part, the human part, saw something else. She wasn't a monster. She was someone left behind, just like him. Stand up, he ordered. She tried to rise, but winced and fell back to one knee. Ethan walked over and grabbed her by the arm. She tensed, but didn't fight back. Her skin was warm, not cold like some said Thalkai were. She leaned on him as he helped her stand. I'll bind your hands, he said. I won't resist, she replied. He pulled out a cord and tied her wrists, not too tight. He checked her side. It was a deep cut, but not fatal. She could walk, but not fast. Can you move? He asked. Yes, she whispered. But why help me? Because I'm not like the ones who left you to die, Ethan said. As they walked through the hills, she limped beside him, silent. After some time, she spoke again. You could have ended me there. It would have been easier, maybe, he said. But I didn't. She looked at him. You expect something in return? Ethan frowned. What? Some humans. Some demand. Favors. He stopped walking. I'm not like that. I don't want anything from you, except for peace. Her eyes widened, like she didn't believe him. You're kind. She said, I'm just doing what's right, Ethan replied. They continued walking until night came. They found a small cave and stopped there to rest. Ethan made a small fire and gave her water. She drank slowly, her hands still tied. What's your name? He asked. Zira, she said. I'm Ethan. They sat in silence for a while. Zira leaned against the wall, her head tilted back. I didn't think I'd live to see the stars again, she said quietly. Why were you fighting? Ethan asked. Because I had to. I was raised to believe humans would destroy us. We were told to fight no matter what. And now? Now I don't know. Ethan watched her for a moment. She wasn't just an enemy. She was someone confused, someone who had followed orders like he did. Maybe this war had blinded both sides. As the fire crackled, Zira turned to him. If keeping me alive is too hard, if the others don't accept me, I'll leave. Or if you must take me in as your prisoner, I won't resist. Ethan nodded. You're not my enemy anymore. She paused, then whispered something barely audible. If you need warmth, I'll stay close, even if it means sharing space. Ethan shook his head. You don't have to say that. You're safe. Just rest. Zira looked surprised, but then gave a small nod. She lay down near the fire and closed her eyes. Ethan stayed awake a little longer. What? Watching the stars through the cave opening, a strange feeling filled his chestnut. Fear, not anger, but something like hope. Maybe things could change. The morning sun rose slowly over the mountains. Soft light spilled into the cave, warming the stone walls. Ethan was already awake, sitting near the fire, sharpening his small knife. He glanced at Zira, who was still asleep. Her breathing was steady, and for the first time since they met, her face looked peaceful. He stood and stretched. His body ached from the battle, but his mind was calm. He had made a choice. He didn't regret sparing her. It felt right. Zira stirred and opened her eyes. She looked around, then at Ethan. "You stayed awake all night?" she asked. "Most of it," he said. "Wanted to make sure no one found us." She sat up slowly, touching her side. The wound still hurt, but it wasn't bleeding much now. She looked at her tied wrists and then at him. "You can untie me," she said softly. "I won't run. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He walked over and cut the cord. Zira rubbed her wrists but didn't move away. "Thank you," she said. "Come on," Ethan said. "We've got a long walk." They left the cave and began moving toward the human base. The journey was slow. Zira limped, and Ethan often had, to help her over rocks and hills. Despite the pain, she didn't complain. After a while, she asked, "Why do you keep helping me?" "You're not trying to kill me," he replied. "That's enough for now." Zira was quiet for a moment. "Back on my world, warriors are trained to fight to the death. Surrender is shame. But I felt something different when I saw you. Fear, not hate. Something strange. Like you didn't want to fight either." "I didn't," Ethan said. They walked for hours. Birds flew overhead and the wind carried the scent of ash from burned-out battles. Finally, in the distance, they saw the outer fences of the human outpost. "We're almost there," Ethan said. "What will happen to me?" Zira asked. "I'll tell them you surrendered peacefully," Ethan said. "They'll keep you safe, probably in a holding room. But you won't be harmed. And what about you?" she asked. "I'll stay with you," he said, "at least until they decide what to do." When they reached the gates, armed guards pointed their weapons. "Identify yourself." One shouted. "Private Ethan Kane," he said. "I've returned." With a surrendering Thalkai, now the guards looked confused but opened the gates. Inside, officers rushed out, their faces filled with shock and suspicion. Zira stood tall, despite her pain. She didn't flinch when they stared or whispered Commander Hale. An older officer with gray hair stepped forward. "Kane, what is this?" he asked. "She's a Thalkai warrior," Ethan said. "She surrendered. She's not a threat." Hell. Narrowed his eyes. "You brought an enemy into our base." "She saved my life," Ethan lied, "and I saved hers. I think she can help us." Hale looked at Zira, then back at Ethan. "Fine, but she stays under watch. If anything goes wrong, it's on you." "Understood," Ethan said. They placed Zira in a secure medical room. Healer treated her wounds, while guards stood outside. Ethan stayed close, watching over her. As the days passed, Zira began to recover. She still had bruises and cuts, but her strength returned slowly. She spoke little, but watched everything around her with sharp eyes. Ethan visited every day, brought her food, water, and news from the outside. "They still don't trust me," she said once. "Give it time," he replied. "They didn't trust me either when I first arrived. You think they'll let me stay? I think they'll see who you are." One morning, while Zira was sitting near the window, she said, "Quietly, I used to believe humans were beasts. My leaders said you had no mercy. But you confuse me. Why? You didn't kill me. You gave me kindness. You didn't ask anything in return." Ethan smiled. Maybe we're not so different. That evening, Hale called Ethan into his office. "She's behaving," Hale said. "But the other soldiers are uneasy. I don't like seeing you with her." "She's not the enemy anymore," Ethan said. "Maybe not," Hale replied. "But people need time. Keep her away from the training grounds. For now, understood. Meanwhile, Zira asked for something surprising. I want to help, she said. Help? Ethan asked. Yes, I know Thalkai. Weapons. I can explain how they work. Maybe it will help your soldiers prepare, Ethan told Hale, who agreed, but warned it would be watched closely. So Zira began teaching, showed human engineers how Thalkai weapons were built, how they powered their ships, and how they moved in battle. Her knowledge was valuable. People started listening. Still not everyone trusted her. Some whispered when she passed. Others refused to speak to her. One night as Ethan brought her a blanket, she asked, Do you ever regret it? Sparing me? Not for a second, he said. She looked down. Even if I was your enemy, you're not anymore. She was silent. Then said, I'll never forget that day. When you looked at me and didn't pull the trigger, I thought it was over. I even offered myself to you. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to die. But now I understand. You didn't want anything from me. Just peace. Ethan sat beside her. You were scared. So was I. But maybe something good came out of that moment. Nodded slowly. Yes, something changed that day. Outside, the wind howled softly. Inside, two former enemies sat quietly. No longer enemies. Not yet friends, but something in between. Something better. Days turned into weeks. The war across the region had slowed down. Most battles had ended, and many alien forces had retreated. But the tension inside the human base still remained. Some soldiers didn't trust Zira. Others were curious but stayed. Distant. Only Ethan stood beside her every day. Zira was no longer just a wounded warrior. She moved better now, her wounds healing well. She had started helping with repairs. When something broke, she fixed it. When someone needed advice about Thalkai gear, she answered calmly. Slowly, a few engineers began nodding when she passed. Even one or two guards started speaking to her without cold eyes. One morning, Commander Hale walked into the tech bay where Zira was helping Ethan clean a broken power core. You've been busy? Hale said, crossing his arms. Just doing? What I can, Zira replied. Hale looked at Ethan. You were right. She's useful. But don't let your guard down. I haven't, Ethan replied. Hale stepped closer to Zira. I'm going to give you a test. What kind? Signal was picked up yesterday. It's Thalkai code. Scrambled. We can't read it. Maybe you can. Zira stood slowly and nodded. I'll try. In the main command room, she sat with two technicians and studied the signal. For an hour, she said nothing. Then she looked. Up, face pale. This is a warning signal, she said. It's from a scout ship. It says a full Thalkai fleet is coming this way. Everyone in the room froze. How long? Lei asked. 3 days? Maybe less? Why would they come here now? The soldier asked. Zira didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, They believe I've been captured. They'll come to destroy everything. Hale turned to Ethan. Is she telling the truth? She hasn't lied yet, Ethan said. Then we prepare for war. Later that night, Zira sat near the edge of the camp, watching the sky. Ethan found her there. You okay? He asked. They're coming, she said softly. My people. My old squad. I know their moves. I know their style. But I also know their weaknesses. Ethan sat beside her. Will you fight with us? She looked at him. If I do, they'll see me as a traitor. And if you don't, we'll all be destroyed. The silence between them was heavy. Then Zira said, I'll go. I'll delay them. I know their signals. I can send false codes. Maybe confuse them for a while. You'll be risking your life. She smiled a little. You risked yours when you spared me. Ethan looked at her. You don't have to. Do this alone. Yes, I do, she said. They'll listen only if it's one of their own. Before she left, Ethan gave her a small beacon. Press this if things go bad. We'll come for you. She nodded and slipped into the shadows. For the next 2 days, the camp prepared defenses. Traps were set. Weapons were checked. Soldiers trained harder than ever. All the while, no word came from Zira. On the third morning, alarms rang across. The base scout drones picked up signs of the incoming fleet, but it was not flying in a normal pattern. Ships moved oddly, stopping, turning back, circling. Ethan stood with Hale at the main screen. "She did it," Hale said. "They're confused." "But for how long?" Ethan asked. Before Hale could reply, a transmission came through. It was Zira. Her face appeared on the screen, bruised and tired. "I bought you time," she said, "but they found me. They know I betrayed them. You'll have to fight soon." "Where are you?" Ethan asked. "Sector 3, near the river valley." Pointed. "That's a trap zone." "Then I'll wait there," Zira said. "They haven't finished me yet, but they will." "Stay alive," Ethan said. "I'm coming." The screen went dark. Hale shook his head. "It's a suicide mission." "I owe her," Ethan said. Against orders, Ethan gathered a small team and headed out. The valley was quiet, too quiet. Smoke rose from the east side. A few Thalkai bodies lay scattered. Signs of a short, hard fight. Then he saw hers, Yer leaning against a rock, her arm burned, her face pale. He rushed to her side. "You came," she said weakly. "Of course I did." "They'll be back," she whispered. "You need to go." "Without you?" He lifted her gently and carried her to the transport. As they flew back, she looked up at him. "I don't regret what I did," she said, "even if they call me a traitor." "You're not a traitor," Ethan said. "You're brave." She smiled faintly. "I didn't think anyone would ever say that again." Back at the base, the medical team took her in. The false signals had delayed the attack just enough. The Thalkai fleet had turned back, confused. And leaderless, the base was safe for now. Zir rested in the med room, and Ethan stayed close. For the first time since they met, the others began to look at her differently, not as an enemy, not as a prisoner, but as someone who had risked everything for them. And as she slept, Ethan whispered softly, "You're not alone anymore." Zira woke up to soft light coming through the window. Her body ached, and her side was wrapped in clean bandages. She blinked slowly, trying to remember where she was. Then she saw Ethan sitting beside the bed, his eyes closed, arms crossed. Resting in the chair, she didn't speak right away. Instead, she looked at him, this strange human who had become something more than a soldier to her. He had saved her more than once. He had trusted her when no one else did. And now, he sat there like a guard who didn't want to leave her side. Ethan stirred and opened his eyes. When he saw her awake, a smile touched his face. "You're back," he said. "How long was I out?" she asked softly. 2 days. "Medics said you needed rest." Zira slowly pushed herself up, wincing. "I thought I wasn't going to make it." "You almost didn't," Ethan said. "But you bought us the time we needed. Without you, the camp would have fallen." My people looked down at her hands. "My people, they won't forgive me. Not for this." Ethan leaned forward. "Maybe not, but the people here, they're starting to understand. They're talking about what you did. They know you helped us. They know you risked your life." "I didn't do it for them," Zero said. "I did it for you." Ethan didn't speak for a moment. His expression grew softer. "I know, and I'm glad you did." A few hours later, Commander Hale entered the room with 2 guards behind him. Zira sat up straight, ready for anything. Hale looked at her, then at Ethan. Word reached the main fleet. The Thalkai pulled back. The threat is gone for now, and it's because of her. Zira didn't react. "We've decided not to treat you as a prisoner anymore," Hale said. "You'll stay here under watch, but you're free to move around the base." Zira nodded. "Thank you." As Hale turned to leave, he added, "You earned it." With time, things changed around the base. Zira was no longer stared at with fear. Now, she was approached with questions, asked for advice, and even greeted with nods. She helped repair old weapons, trained soldiers in defense, and even laughed a little when one soldier fell trying to mimic a Thalkai combat move. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Zira and Ethan walked along the outer wall of the base. The wind was gentle, and the sky had shades of orange and purple. "Do you miss your world?" Ethan asked. "Sometimes," Zero said. "I miss the open plains, the songs of the wind, and the scent of bluegrass after the rains." Ethan smiled. It sounds peaceful, it was, before the war. They walked in silence for a while. Then Zira said, "I used to think humans only knew war and noise, but now I see things differently. You care, you protect, you give second chances." "Not all of us," Ethan replied, "but some try." She looked at him. "You did more than try. You changed everything for me." Ethan stopped walking and turned toward her. "You changed me to Zira." They stood there, two souls from different worlds, bound by shared danger and quiet respect. The next day, something unexpected happened. A transport ship arrived with a diplomatic team. Peace talks had started between Human Command and Thalkai leaders. Word of Zira's actions had reached both sides. The humans called her a bridge between worlds. The Thalkai, however, sent a warning. "Return the warrior Zira, or the talks would end." Hale gathered the main officers, including Ethan and Zira. "This is your choice," Hale said to Zira. "We won't force you, but if you go, it might help the talks. If you stay, things might get worse." Zira didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "I'll go. Not as a prisoner, but as a voice." Ethan's heart sank. "It might not listen, then I'll make them," she said. That night, she and Ethan sat under the stars outside the med bay. She was quiet, staring at the sky. "Do you think they'll harm you?" Ethan asked. "I don't know," she said. "I have to try." "You could stay," Ethan said. "You don't owe anyone anything." Zira looked at him. "I owe you. For showing me that not all humans are cruel, for saving me when you didn't have to." Ethan leaned forward. "I'll miss you." She smiled sadly. "I'll miss you too." Then she reached out, placing her hand gently over his. "I meant what I said back then," she whispered, "about staying close. But not because I was afraid anymore, because I wanted to." Ethan nodded. "I know." The next morning, Zira boarded the diplomatic transport. As the engine started, she looked out the window at Ethan, standing alone on the landing pad. She raised her hand. He raised his, and then she was gone. The transport ship flew through quiet skies, leaving the human base far behind. Zira sat near a window, staring at the stars. Her heart felt heavy. She had said goodbye to Ethan, not knowing if she would ever see him again. She had made her choice for peace for both sides. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense. A few humans from the peace team sat near her, keeping their distance. They didn't treat her like an enemy, but they didn't speak much either. Zira understood. Trust didn't come quickly. The pilot spoke over the comm, approaching Thalkai command ship. "Prepare for docking." Zira stood up and straightened her armor. It had been cleaned and repaired, but the old cracks and marks from battle still remained. They were part of her story now. The command ship was massive, shaped like a crescent moon. Its hull was dark silver, and its lights flickered like distant stars. The ship had once led many attacks. Now it was hosting talks that could end the war. When the doors opened, Thalkai guards waited. They looked at Zira with wide eyes clearly. "Surprise?" "Commander Zira," one of them asked. "Yes," she said calmly. They stepped aside and led her through quiet halls to a high chamber. Their Thalkai generals sat around a round table. They wore long cloaks and sharp expressions. Zira walked in, unshaken. One of the older generals stood. "We received reports that you fought for the humans. Is it true?" "I fought for peace," Zira said. "Not for one side. I saw both. I chose to help the ones who offered me life instead of death. You turned your back on us," another said. "No," Zira replied. "I opened my eyes." Long silence followed. The human diplomats entered next, led by a man named Colonel Mason. He gave Zira a small nod. The talks began slowly. Both sides explained their losses, their goals, their pain. Zira spoke when asked. She told them what she saw at the human base, how people feared the war as much as the Thalkai did. She told them how she was spared, healed, and trusted. The voice was calm but strong. Hours passed. Food was brought. More discussions followed. Tempers rose and fell. By the end of the first day, nothing was decided. The humans returned to their guest quarters. Zero was brought to a private room, a small, quiet space with soft lights and a view of the stars. She sat on the edge of the bed, thinking of Ethan. He had been kind, honest, and brave. He had never asked her to change. And now, without him near, the silence felt cold. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, a small band he had given her before she left. It had a simple message inside, written in human letters. "You're not alone." The next day, the talks continued. Zero spoke again, this time with more power in her words. She described the pain she felt after being left behind by her own people, and the surprise of being shown mercy by a human. Some Thalkai commanders listened with interest. Others remained silent. On the third day, a young Thalkai officer stood and asked, "What makes you think humans can be trusted?" Zira answered with only one word, "Ethan." The room quieted. "A single human taught me more than years of war ever did," she continued. "He could have ended my life. Instead, he saved it. He gave me food, warmth, and treated me like more than just an enemy. He didn't want anything from me, just wanted peace. How can that be a lie?" The old general looked at her closely. "Do you trust them?" "Yes," she said without fear. "I do." That night, while Zira sat alone in her room, a message came through her cum screen. She opened it and saw Ethan's face. "Hi," he said with a tired smile. "They finally gave me a secure channel." Her heart jumped. "Ethan, how are things over there?" he asked. "Difficult," she said honestly. "Some believe me, some don't. But I won't give up." "Neither will I," he said. "People here talk about you, even Commander Hale. They say you might be the key to peace." Zero smiled softly. "I hope so." They talked for a few minutes, just voices across space, but it felt like home. Before the call ended, Ethan said, "No matter what happens, I believe in you." "Thank you," Zero whispered. "I believe in us." The next day, both sides returned to the table for a final decision. After long debate, the Thalkai leaders finally spoke. "We will agree to temporary peace," they said. "But we need a link, a voice both sides trust." They looked at Zira. "Will you serve as that voice?" She stood tall. "Yes, I will." 3 months had passed since Zero became the voice between humans and Thalkai. The peace agreement was still fresh, still fragile, but it was holding. Battles had stopped. Scouts no longer flew in enemy skies for the first time in years. The galaxy had quieted. Zur traveled often. She sat in human meetings, then in Thalkai circles. She carried messages, cleared confusion, and prevented small sparks from turning into war again. Her words had weight. Both sides respected her. But every night when the work ended, her thoughts returned to one place, Ethan. He hadn't left the border camp. He had continued his job, training new soldiers, watching the skies, and speaking to her when the channels allowed. Their short calls became longer. Their words grew softer. They shared old stories, laughed at silly things, and sometimes just sat silently, feeling the distance between them. One day, Zero received an official invitation from Commander Hale. The humans wanted to honor her with a medal for peacekeeping. The event would be held at the very same base where Ethan waited. She didn't hesitate. She said yes. As her transport ship landed, Zero stood by the window. She had been here before, wounded, unsure, broken. Now she returned strong with a purpose. The doors opened, and she stepped out into the sunlight. Ethan was there, waiting beside Commander Hale. His uniform looked the same, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. He walked forward, without a word, and stood in front of her. "You came," he said quietly. "Of course," she replied. "You look better." She gave a soft laugh. "Stronger, smarter, maybe a little more tired." He smiled. Same here. The base looked different now. More peaceful. Less guarded. Even the soldiers who once looked at her with suspicion now nodded in welcome. She was no longer the enemy. She was something more. The ceremony was short. Commander Hale spoke a few words, then handed her a medal shaped like a star, wrapped in a circle symbol of hope and unity. You remind us what mercy can do, Hale, said Zira. Held the medal, but said nothing. Her eyes found Ethan in the crowd. His face was calm, but his gaze told her everything. After the event, they walked through the quiet part of the base, near the hill where they once talked under the stars. The air was warm and the sky painted. With soft colors. You did it, Ethan said. You've stopped a war. We did it, Zira corrected. He looked at her. Do you still think about that day? When we first met. Every night, she said. I was ready to give up everything. You gave me something I didn't expect. Life. Ethan stepped closer. And you gave me something I didn't know I needed. Trust. They stood quietly. For a while then, Zira looked up and said, I once said I'd stay close if it meant surviving. But now I want to stay close because it means living. Ethan reached out and gently took her hand. Then stay. Not as a guest. Not as a peacekeeper. Just as you. Just as Zira. She asked, smiling. Just as Zira, he said. That night, the stars shone brighter. The camp was silent, peaceful. In a small room near the garden, Zira sat by the window, watching the sky. Ethan entered quietly and sat beside her. You know, he said, you once told me something in that cave. Yes, she said softly. I remember. But I didn't keep you alive because of what you said. I did it because I saw someone who didn't want to die, but also didn't know how to live. Zira turned to him, and now you live better than most of us. She leaned her head on his shoulder. That's because I found something worth living for. They stayed there, side by side, in the quiet room. Outside. The world slowly healed. There would be more challenges, more days of doubt and fear, but Zira and Ethan had already passed the hardest part. They had turned mercy into strength. They had turned trust into unity. And they had turned a war story into something beautiful.